Another big day in the Russia investigation. President Trump today threatening to get personally involved in the fight between the Freedom Caucus and the Justice Department. Now, as you know, the conservative lawmakers in the Freedom Caucus have threatened to impeach Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein unless he releases documents about surveillance on Trump campaign members. Rosenstein said this in response.
The Department of Justice is not going to be extorted. We're going to do what's required by the rule of law, and any kind of threats that anybody makes are not going to affect the way we do our job.
Today, the president tweeted, "A rigged system. They don't want to turn over documents to Congress. What are they afraid of? Why so much redacting? Why such unequal justice? At some point, I will have no choice but to use the powers granted to the presidency and get involved." So does the president have the power to step in? And if so, what can he do? Let me ask criminal defense attorney David Bruno. David, welcome to the show.
Hello, Kennedy.
So let's talk a little bit about the president's grab bag. What can he reach in and pull out to shake some of those documents loose from the DOJ?
Well, he really does have limited options. I think at the top of it would be to fire Rosenstein. And I hope he does not do that, because you could see the response already, obstruction of justice, right? But he does have the power to do that under Article 2, so long as it's not a corrupt motive. The fight right now is a conflict between the DOJ saying we need to keep the investigation tight and Congress wanting documents. At the heart of it is this August 2nd, 2017 memorandum. It came after Mueller was appointed, and it really limited the scope as to what Mueller is to investigate.
Do we know that? Do we know the contents of the memo?
We know partially of it, because it actually came out in the Manafort case. There was a motion filed. Manafort challenged the scope of the investigation, and the DOJ redacted that document. They redacted everything other than how it related to Manafort. So that would be critical to know, especially in light of these new questions that we talked about last night about what Trump could potentially be asked. What is this special counsel investigating? That is what they're trying to get.
I guess, you know, I don't understand why they would withhold this kind of information.
I agree.
Because if you set out the parameters and if you show people the scope of the investigation, you know, a lot of people, particularly supporters of the president, would have an easier time letting Mueller finish the investigation, which I think is very necessary to do right now. I think it's so easy to muddy the waters that you have to keep it as simple as possible. And withholding information, whether it's this or some of the background information on the Hillary Clinton email server investigation.
Agreed. Especially in light of the fact that the first memorandum was released publicly. That was in May. This is a subsequent memorandum really expanding what the scope was. So if you're going to release the first one, why not show us what the investigation is about now?
I'm wondering, and I would love to hear what your thoughts are on this, because it almost seems like Rod Rosenstein, once he knew that Jeff Sessions had recused himself, was working with James Comey to get Comey fired so they could launch the special counsel in order to take down the president. Well, am I being too conspiracy theoretical?
Well, he's part of it, right? He wrote the memo that went to Sessions, and that is one of the basis for the Trump firing of Comey. So he's a part of it. He's also a witness in the obstruction of justice, if there is one, because of that memo. How in the world can he still be at the top of Mueller directing him about this investigation when he's a critical witness of obstruction of justice?
Yeah, the whole thing is so strange, and I hate the idea that we continually appoint special counsel for this. I think that Congress has to do its job. The Inspector General has to be allowed to finish, because I think the Inspector General here at the DOJ has been actually very fruitful.
Huge point, okay, because we just got a report about McCabe. That actually was the report that got him fired. Now, if he finds something about Rod Rosenstein, that will be a reason to fire him as well. Who knows? There is a memo coming out about the Hillary Clinton investigation, and now there's other investigations with respect to the DOJ. I think the president should take a step back. I do not think he should be intervening with this document request by Congress and saying that he's going to.
No, I understand he's passionate. I understand he feels like he has been wrongfully targeted in this special investigation, and that he has done nothing wrong. And, you know, when you've done nothing wrong, I understand that people get defensive because it is a huge distraction. But you can see the distractions getting so much worse if the president is too heavy-handed. Last word.
Last word, I think this investigation has to wrap up. Unfortunately, I don't think it will. We have the Manafort trial that still has to happen. We have all these cooperating witnesses. I think it would be best for our country, our markets, and the president if this thing would wrap up.
Most importantly, the markets.
Absolutely.
Well said, David Bruno. Great closing argument. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Appreciate it.